extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640.
I'm the guy they call the Spaceman. This is A View from Space. I'd like to welcome you in if you're driving around town right now, or if you're at work listening to AM 640, I welcome you in. Or if you're listening right now on Shaw Direct on Channel 865, picking up the show there, welcome you in also. Or if you're listening to me on your 3 or 4G personal communication device via the Stream the World software, I welcome you in too. Or if what some call the best seat in the house, check out A View from Space. Logged on to 640toronto.com, picking up the live audio streaming there. I welcome you in. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you in. What a week for PSYOPs. PSYOPs? Never heard the word before? Must be a new listener to the show. PSYOPs is a psychological operation designed to make people think about what you're supposed to think. All right? What they want you to believe. That's a PSYOP. PSYOPs are done to convince people. And the biggest one, of course, this week is, what color is the dress? And everybody had a lot of fun with that. And the very next day, Leonard Nimoy dies. And that goes viral. Well, viral, let me explain to you very quickly. What viral really is and what it really means is this. Tavistock Institute, the brainwashing capital of the world, located in London, England, with a statue of Sigmund Freud right outside, that would pretty well tell you where they're going with their agenda. Psychology. Psychological operation this week over this dress. But you see, all it is an optical phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light. That's all. It's an optical illusion. That's all. You've been in situations where the lighting, the shading, for instance, will make a beautiful white linen sheet on your bed look almost blue. Well, that's exactly what the white and gold and the blue and black was this week. But it goes deeper than that because it's a PSYOP, a psychological operation. Now, this first was posted on the internet by a 21-year-old girl from Scotland on Tumblr. The dress made by Roman Originals Company. Roman Originals is a dressmaking company, well, women's wear, ladies' wear, that has been in business since the late 50s. Started in Birmingham. It's now got 150 stores across the UK. And of course, yes, it all emanates from the UK. It didn't really go viral. But what happened was all of the major networks, all of the major sources for news picked it up because they're Illuminati controlled. That's why I call it the Illuminati controlled mass media. They pick it up, they shoot it out there, and everyone is talking about it from Hong Kong all the way to San Francisco, right round the world. Because they can get it out there because of the incredible media prowess they have. Now, as you've heard all week, some viewers see the dress as white and gold. Others see it blue and black. But it's all about, as I said, the optical phenomenon caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light, all depending on what situation it is. And then there's the colorblind people that cannot distinguish between, usually it's green and brown, can't tell. One looks like the other. They see it as the same color. But this PSYOPs goes a little bit deeper than just the color of a dress. Because it's all about perception, you see. That's what it triggers in your mind. All about perception. Because that's why they're saying, what color do you think the dress is? And they trot out all the huge celebrities to talk about it, making it, of course, an internet sensation. And everybody's talking about it, so you gotta go check it out. Because the mass media said it was viral, so everybody went to check it out, and it became viral. So it's all about perception. How do you see it? Because you see, in the world that we're moving into, the Illuminati's new science/black magic, and that line is so great, you can't tell the difference anymore between real science and actual black magic. Nothing is right or wrong. Only thinking makes it so. It's all about perception. Repeat it. Nothing is right nor wrong in this whole world. Only thinking makes it so. And it goes a little deeper than that with just what color is the dress. It's how do you see it, your perception of it. The ISIS videos, for instance. It's proven now that they are photoshopped. Jihadi John has now been, outed as a Brit, giving you that positive identification of, yes, homegrown terrorism is real. Or is it? What color is the dress? Do you believe that these people are being radicalized and will leave the comfort of their home to go to a war-torn area in the Middle East to do who knows what? They don't know what. They're just leaving. The latest is 6 from Quebec here in Canada. 6 girls leave. All women, if you'll notice. And what is it? It's not a suit. What color is the suit? It's a dress. And it all really started. Do you know where this dress thing started? It started with Lupita Nyong'o's stolen $150,000 pearl Oscar gown. Remember? At the start, this is before the dress came out. So a thief has apparently returned this $150,000 Calvin Klein dress worn by Lupita Nyong'o at the Oscars ceremony, celebrating that. I mean, you talk about exposure. The Oscars give you exposure. The dress was actually left in a garment carrier inside a garbage bag at the London Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Because the pearls were supposed to be real, but they turned out to be fake. So this dress has been returned. How about that one? It was found in the toilets of a hotel where it was stolen. At the London Hotel in Los Angeles, California. So the dress started to make this imprint at that particular time at the Oscars, a stolen dress. Well, why would anyone want to steal a dress? Well, because $150,000 worth of pearls are on it. You would want that to cash in. But they were fake. Real or fake? Perception. Nothing is real. Nothing is fake. It's all in your mind. You make up your mind. It's the Spaceman continuing this theme right after this break on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the Spaceman. This is AVFS, and I'm just getting started. I'm the guy to call space. This is a view from space. It's Talk Radio AM 640. The big psyop that happened this week, along with the death of Leonard Nimoy, the man on Star Trek known as Spock. What color is the dress? It took the world by storm. Well, not really. It was promoted the hell out of with the incredible prowess of the Illuminati-controlled mass media, making it viral, making everyone go and check it out once they saw it on their news channel. Because all of the major Illuminati-controlled mass media channels picked it up. Everyone. across the world. Small little family business originally started in Birmingham, late 50s, called Roman Originals. The name came from an inspiration of Italian fabrics and raw materials. If you'll recall, the Roman Catholics used to run Britain. Yes, they did, before King Henry VIII took down their church and threw them all out, which gave them that us against them mentality, with the Anglican and the Roman Catholic Church splitting religion. But it's all about perception. How do you see it? That's what this little psychological operation was about this week. And it wasn't about a dress at all. Oh yes, they had a dress to show you it's all about perception. Is it white and gold, or is it blue and black? What do you see? And then, of course, everyone has to chime in and give their opinion on it, what they see. And then if you have one other person saying that it was blue and black, well, then you've got this incredible, wondrous, magical spell happening. All because of the tricks the Illuminati used by the Tavistock Brainwashing Institute in London, England, who actually broke this story, put it into the news stream. The colors appear to change because of an optical phenomenon that's caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light. That's all. Because it's all about perception. Perception as you see it, and it can change. In other words, truth can change. In other words, there are no constants. Even colors aren't the same all the time. Now you get into it a little bit deeper. Jihadi John is outed as a Brit. He's the ISIS head chopper in the ISIS videos that are all faked, photoshopped. Anybody can tell that. But there's a battle going on. Because most people believe that they look photoshopped, but you always have someone who is unnamed from an unnamed organization, and sometimes they say it's the CIA, sometimes they say it's the FBI, and they authenticate the video, making you not believe your perception anymore, but now challenging you on the official version, what you're supposed to think, how I started, how I opened the show tonight, what you're supposed to think. Here's something else, the Mars One mission. Do you actually believe we can get there yet? NASA doesn't even know how we're going to get there. They don't have all of the details worked out, but they're going anyway. Wouldn't you first find out how to get there, then set up this Mars One mission? The brainchild, by the way, of a Dutchman, an Illuminati member. Because you see, that's all a hoax also. It's all about perception. They're lies. That's where black magic / science comes in. Mars One mission is science / black magic. They can't get there, but they have people going to give you to perceive that they are actually going to go, because they already have people, and tons of people actually wanted to go and sign up. Some didn't even make the cut. And there's some there that are going to have to wait till 2025 before they get it going. But they don't even know how to get there yet. They don't know how to live there when they do get there. I mean, all of it is a lie. But it's all about perception, because you see, they're actually going. They've actually announced the trip and the details, but not how they're going to get there or how they're going to live when they do get there. It's all about perception once again. Also, let's go to the Ukraine war now. Is it rebels or is it Russian soldiers? Well, it's all about your perception, isn't it? How do you see it? Is the dress white or gold? Is the dress blue and black? Are they Ukrainians who are fighting against other Ukrainians because they want Russia in control? Or are they Russian soldiers? And all of the terrorist attacks, all of the perpetrators, are they in actual fact real? Or are they special operations soldiers committing these atrocities and hanging it on a group called ISIS? Because you never can see anyone's face. They're always covered. You see, it's all about how do you see it. Nothing is right nor wrong. Only thinking makes it so. So the Mars One mission, you have to make up your mind if all of the things that they're telling you about, that they're actually learning from outer space, landing on comets, it's all bogus. Your economy is being falsely propped up. But you have all the numbers that indicate a 2% growth, or a little bit more. And so many jobs were created this quarter, or it's all bogus. Because the global economy is having the stuffing kicked out of it. It's being throttled every which way. What with sanctions on other countries, what with the price of oil dropping, what with very few dollars chasing too many products. So some places have to close down. So what you have is people going out of business. The economy is not going well. They're lying to you. It's not going well. But they make you think there are, after 2008, they make you think that you've actually gained some, but actually, in fact, you're living on printed fake money. Is it real? Or is it phony? It's all about perception. How do you see it? Again, with the economy. Is the color of the dress white and gold, or is it blue and black? What this psychological operation was meant to do was to show you that they're going to tell you which is the correct version. So the next video that comes out, and there will be a next video of some atrocity committed by ISIS, they will tell you. And there will be more kids leaving, probably girls, all set up again to give you that perception of reality when it is actually, in fact, set up to convince you it's happening when it's really not. Because that's all magic really is. Tricking you into thinking that something is really actually happening when it is not. So you see, it's not only the Ukraine war, it's not only the ISIS videos, it's not just the Mars One mission and all of the work that they're doing in outer space. They're building a weapons platform out there and a control platform for the weaponry systems. That's what they're doing. They're making Earth a prison where you'll be watched constantly from outer space and occasionally attacked from outer space. Oh, yes, and it's going to get bigger, because now when I say outer space, we're talking about aliens. Again, it's all about perception. Nothing is right or wrong, only thinking makes it so. Are you inclined to think that there are such things as aliens? Well, before 1947, you were ready for a psychiatric unit if you thought there were aliens. After 1947, when they planted the idea and then really ramped it up with supposed sightings and all of that, and they have been doing it for how many years? The 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and now into the 2000s. They've been going over 60 years, pounding on this alien threat, which Which leads me to the next PSYOP story, which ties in with the dress, Leonard Nimoy, the man known as Spock. The lone alien on the Starship Enterprise's bridge. That's who Spock was. They killed him. He died. Friday the 27th, a 9-day, Satan's favorite number. Leonard Nimoy also acknowledged this duality. What I'm talking about, the color of the dress. Is it white or gold, or is it black and blue? In other words, it's both. It all depends on your perception. But in actual fact, in science, it's appearing to change because of an optical phenomenon I've described twice already. But Leonard Nimoy also acknowledged this duality. He called his ambivalence about being synonymous with the character Spock, the alien, expressing it most plainly in the titles of a couple of autobiographies that he wrote. One, published in 1977, I Am Not Spock. And then the exact opposite of that view, titled I Am Spock, published in 1995. See the duality? I am not Spock. How much plainer can this be for you? I am Spock. 1977, I am not Spock. 1995, I am Spock. By the way, they were written exactly 18 years apart, the hidden 666, plainly clear. And what else? That was also very cleverly revealed in those two writings by Leonard Nimoy is the dualistic nature the Illuminati love to point out so often, because it is the way of their god Lucifer. More on the other side of the break on this. Talk Radio, AM 640. I'm Space. It's AVFS. Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. You can email me. Two locations, space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. They start rolling in before the show even begins. And, well, I have to say, a lot of people are beginning now to catch on. Even John Kerry came out this past week and said that, hey, we're getting beat here by the propaganda war by RT. You know, the Russian channel that's showing in America. I mean, Larry King is even on it. But it has the sort of Russian. Here we go again with perception, giving you both sides. Now, which one are you going to believe? Well, you will believe the authorities when they tell you which one is real. John Kerry, being the authoritative figure, one of the 6 wise men of the world, don't you know, has said that RT is beating them in the game of their propaganda war. Because that's what your newscasts are now. They're not news. They're propaganda, pitting one side against the other. I'll get into that right now. Because you see, this is what's going on in our world right now. A fight for your mind. And the duality is the best way, the dualistic nature is the best way to very cleverly conceal the agenda. I am Spock, I am not Spock. The dress is white and gold, the dress is blue and black. All depends on who the person is viewing it. And they're going to tell you the correct view. That's why they have, well, another video has been put out by ISIS. Now you figure, if they can land on a comet that takes 10 years to get there, they can't find out where these videos are coming from ISIS. Think about it for a moment. NASA can hack in on you, but they don't hack in on ISIS. Why? Because ISIS is the CIA. ISIS is anonymous. They're mixing black magic with this science now and convincing many people of what isn't really going on at all, but making you think that it is, giving you the appearance that it is. No one over in the Middle East wants to fight the West. No one over in the West wants to fight in the Middle East. But somehow we're fighting. And we're all having to nod our heads in agreement that it's a good thing that we should be doing this. All about perception. How do you see it? Because you see, in the new world, this one that's coming, there are no absolutes. Nothing is right or wrong. Only thinking makes it so. So Leonard Nimoy dies. The only alien on the Starship Enterprise's bridge ever. He puts out the Duality in 77, I am not Spock. In 95, I am Spock. 18 years apart. The hidden 666. It's the dualistic nature of the Illuminati's god Lucifer, the bringer of light, knowledge, science/black magic. You know, the dualistic nature, black and white, yin yang, good and evil. You know, as in the Illuminati god Lucifer. How he can do it, being capable of doing great good for mankind through knowledge, science, enlightenment, as that's called, but also capable of committing great evil as well. That's how chaos is created, by pitting one side against the other. One belief against another, one individual against another, one dress against another, pitting one country against another, one system against another, one army against another, one culture against another, one religion against the other. But for what purpose would you ever want to do that, you might ask? Why would anyone ever want to create chaos through those channels? Well, when you understand that it's chaos, and only chaos, that creates change in the world, you can see why our overlords, the elites, the Illuminati, are using this principle to effect a total sea change in the world as we know it. Everything, I've said many times before on this show, is to be shaken. Everything is to be shaken. That's the plan. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken to create this new Atlantis, this new golden age, this one world government system. So, Leonard Nimoy, being the only lone alien on the bridge of the Enterprise, dies this week. Psychological warfare is going on. A psychological war, like a psi operation that we had this week with the dress. It's admitted that it's going on, but it's very, very poorly understood by the average person in the world. Psychological warfare, that component of the military, the Illuminati-controlled military forces. Other powers are also known to have so-called psi weapons, psychological weapons. And as a matter of fact, I had it on was it last week's show or the week before, that the British Army is now having a total regiment that's going to be assigned to psychological weaponry on social media. Because that's where the battlefield is right now for the mind. Oh, they will move to boots on the ground sooner or later. But right now they have to convince you, and they're losing that war on this war on terrorism with you. You're not really scared enough yet to change all of your privacy laws and dump them over the side to be that total surveillance society in a open and free society. It's the doublespeak again. It's the yin-yang. It's the black and white. It's the gold and white. It's the black and blue. It's all about your perception. And these powers, these psychological weaponry systems that they have, are not limited, and they're not guns. They're for the mind. They're videos. They're maps. They're talking heads that come on and say, I'm reporting to you live right now, when they're not, from a certain area, and giving you bogus information, and playing up the enemy as the cruelest, the worst, the most evil of all, and must therefore be wiped out. Modern media advertising is clearly a form of psychological war, one waged against targeted demographics by major corporations and other institutions. This is well known. And those institutions include religions. In Victorian dramas, plays, and novels, characters were often given significant names, names that described the character or had a special meaning, had to do with the plot. Oscar Wilde's play, The Importance of Being Earnest, and is a pretty good example of it, with the title's double meaning. The importance of being earnest. Likewise, the names of the characters in the original television series Star Trek, chock full of multiple meanings. Are these meanings of no significance whatsoever beyond the just telling of a story in an episode? Or do they reveal a hidden, subliminal, psychological operation directed at a targeted population, which includes you and I? I'm going to show you that Star Trek was a premeditated psychological attack on you, not for entertainment at all. One whose purpose was to subliminally, at the beginning, subliminally indoctrinate you into obeying the Roman Catholic Church. I know it sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? But listen, hear me out. First, let's start with the main character, the mover, the shaker, the guy in charge. What is his name? Captain James T. Kirk. You analyze this name. You first must know that James, Captain James T. Kirk, James was the brother of Jesus. James took over the movement founded by Jesus after the crucifixion. The name means James, the supplanter, and is a variant of Jacob, one of the patriarchs of the Old Testament, King James Version of the Bible. Captain Kirk's middle name was Tiberius, a Roman general and emperor. The Roman Catholic Church, the Roman emperor. Kirk, by the way, is the most common European language spelling for the word church. Yes, in Deutsch, Kirk is church. Put them all together. Brother of Jesus, the Roman emperor, church. What do you have? The Roman Catholic Church in Star Trek. There's more when I return on Talk Radio AM 640, because it does get secular later on. I'm Spaceman. It's View from Space. Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. RG writes about the PSYOPs this week with the what color is the dress. I think these are all tests to see how gullible people are and move on to other levels of agenda. And that's exactly what's going on. Because you don't really know. You're not an expert, so they bring on the talking head experts to tell you what is happening, what you're seeing is real, when it's not. Another email states, there is truth in comedy like South Park, with an episode on the terrorists terrorizing, are all in your imagination. And another one, I thought they're really serious on bringing people to Mars and live there, and the comet landing, I think they're insulting my intelligence and the intelligence of many others. GG writes, when you say there are going to be attacks from space, will the attacks be blamed on aliens? Well, we've already had an attack from space. Yes. It was that Chelyabinsk comet that supposedly crashed into that Russian city. That was a space-based weapon. Already out there. And growing. They're building a cyber prison, and they're putting guns out there. Things are going to get very strange very soon, and people will wonder where reality did go. Because the things that will be happening will just not seem real. Because they're not. They're being perpetrated on. You're being attacked. Because you see, the armies of the world aren't being attacked. No. This war on terrorism, guess who the target is? It's the citizens of the earth. That's who it is. So the Catholic Church, starting off with Star Trek. You think about it for a moment. Captain James T. Kirk. James, brother of Jesus, took over the ministry after Jesus was hung on the cross. Tiberius is the T. Roman emperor. And Kirk is the church. It's the European language spelling of the word church in English. Put all those together, brother of Jesus, Roman emperor, church, you have the Roman Catholic Church. It was the Roman Catholic Church that was in control of the enterprise. It was the Federation in the early days. Then it morphed into the Illuminati's one world government idea. And that became the Federation. And the enterprise, of course, would be the group that goes out into other rogue countries, planets, and fights them. Forces them to become part of the Federation. Tames them. They meet friendly ones, and they meet the very, very, very violent ones. So, Captain Kirk, we have a church, a Kirk flying through outer space. The home of God, outer space. Just a pun or a subliminal message? Who ran Kirk? Captain James T. Kirk took his orders from the Starfleet Command. If Kirk represents the Roman Catholic Church, then Starfleet has to be God. Fleet can refer to a number of ships. It can also mean swift. Is it not God who commands the stars in their swift passage through the heavens? Under Kirk, Captain James T. Kirk, were two primary characters. The medical officer, Leonard McCoy. And the science officer, Mr. Spock. The only alien on the bridge. Not human. He is that connection the Illuminati has with alien life forms. The Illuminati believe that they are the descendants of the aliens who mated with human women. So, we have Leonard McCoy, the science officer. Spock, the science officer. Let's take up McCoy now. Leonard is broken down to a word. Nard. Actually, two words. Leo and Nard. Nard means brave and strong. Leo is, of course, the lion. Together, they mean strong in the Lord, strong in the lion, strong in faith. No less than 13 popes, by the way, for the Roman Catholic Church, have taken the name Leo. The lion has been a symbol of Christianity nearly since its inception. The Lion of Judah. Of course, and that's the bloodline, the lion. Aliens, Spock, Leonard. See, the science officer, Leonard McCoy, is strong in faith. Faith in science. Proven fact. He has two reference to American culture. McCoy does. Remember that Spock and McCoy, the emotionless and the emotional. Spock, of course, the emotionless, very logical alien, and the emotional, off-the-handle McCoy. They were perpetually locked in a fighting feud, weren't they? If you've watched the show. As well as being the archetypal battle of emotion versus logic. Again, perception. Is emotion better than logic? Or is logic better than emotion? As one of my emailers said, reality doesn't matter. It's what the world is told to perceive that matters. So as well as being, as I say, the archetypal battle of emotion and logic, it's also a throwback to an event in American history. Remember the feud of the two southern families, the McCoys and the Hatfields? That huge struggle between those two? Planted deep in the minds of most Americans and all North Americans, really. They know the Hatfields and the McCoys feuding. McCoy, Hatfields, McCoys, Leonard McCoy represents the McCoys, of course, and Spock stands for the Hatfields, who lost. McCoy's second connection to American culture and consciousness is the phrase, the real McCoy. You know what the real McCoy means, right? Don't you? The real McCoy means, that's not fake. Here we go again. It's not fake. It means that the item referred to is the genuine article, not an imitation, not a fake. It's clearly real. Clearly, this attempts to say that the Roman Catholic Church is the true religion in Star Trek, while upstart science, championed by Spock, is the imposter. So, Dr. Leonard of the faithful McCoy, true religion, is the emotional. Be as the little children, faith from the heart, right? Dualities being the easiest to deal with in a 60-minute format, by the way, in a TV show or a 30-minute format. We also have the equally archetypal battle of good versus evil in Star Trek. If McCoy is on the winning side of true religion, then the losing Spock and science must be of Lucifer, the devil. Just so you don't miss which side McCoy is on, his assistant is Nurse Christine, a variant of Christ, of course. They give him pointy ears, Spock, right? Pointy ears. To ensure that you saw him as Lucifer, Satan. Pointed ears of the devil. Spock's got no other names pronounceable by humans, that is. Demons, as you may well be aware if you've listened to this show and didn't know before, you would now, that they have names that humans can summon them up by. But you have to say them exactly correct. And sometimes there's drum beats to go along with it, or music to go along with it to lure them, as well as ones that cannot be uttered by the human tongue. Some names cannot be spoken. Spock is a half-breed, part human, part Vulcan, alien. What he is he's half man, half god. Vulcan is where Spock is supposedly from. Vulcan was the Roman god of fire and craftsmanship who lived in the underworld. Again, an image of both science and Lucifer and the devil. Think about it for a moment. Vulcan. It's perfect for chaos and creation because, you see, Vulcan, the god of volcanoes, where we get our word Vulcan from, volcanoes from, Vulcan, the Roman god of fire and volcanoes, will violently erupt, causing all kinds of destruction, but builds land after it cools. So you understand now how it works. Through chaos, creation. Space, back with more. The other side of the break. It's Talk Radio, AM 640 at SaveDFS. I'm the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. You can email me at space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. Sorting delayed return to the air, but I was just reading some of the incredible emails that I've been getting. JL writes, I don't get it. Why would Leonard Nimoy be killed? What significance does that hold? The guy was 83 years old, rushed to the hospital a couple of days ago with heart problems, like an 83-year-old would. Compared to the other famous people that were really killed and covered up for an obvious agenda, I think you were wrong on this one, Space. What I mean, JL, is that you can pick the day that you will kill someone in a hospital. You can, okay, today's the day we pull the plug. Today's the day we put them out of their misery with, an overdose of morphine. Whatever. But you can get rid of them on the day you want, is what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, he was killed, but he was dying. I agree with you on that. But the timing, they pick the timing of your death. They, meaning the ones in charge of your career. They own you. They put the words in your mouth. You take their payment, and it is a very lucrative job, and the fame is immense. But they call when you go. They call when you work, they call when you stop working. They're gods. Get it? They start the life of Spock, they end the life. So that's what I meant by that. And another person has emailed me and told me that the Andorians were really other aliens that were, in actual fact, in Star Trek. But they're not on the crew. That's what I meant by that. Yes, the Andorians, a blue blood race, by the way, in on the ground floor of the United Planets Association in the Star Trek series. But you also have to know that Andorians first appeared in the 1968 Star Trek, the original series episode called Journey to Babel. They weren't in them all. That's what I mean, a regular character. And they've been seen or mentioned, yes, in episodes of later series in the Star Trek franchise, but they're not part of the team. So you see what I mean. There are many aliens in Star Trek. I mean, they're always fighting aliens, aren't they? The rogue nations is what they actually represent. The Federation sending out the Enterprise to tame them and to bring them into the fold. Yes, it's pretty amazing about what Star Trek really was all about. Dr. Spock was a secular humanist. And the only Spock that could refer to contemporary American culture, Canadian culture, North American culture, UK culture, would be Dr. Benjamin Spock, the baby doctor. And I think this was actually intended to subliminally cause the viewer of Star Trek to associate science, a little over a century old only, by the way, with infancy, infants, children, babies. Because science is in its infancy as a science/black magic phenomenon. Infancy. Wait till you see what they will be able to create and pass off as real. Aliens, even. Dr. Spock was a secular humanist and an outspoken opponent of the Vietnam War, which, by the way, was becoming a major shooting war at the time that Star Trek hit the airwaves. Spock, as a half-human, half-god on the bridge of the Enterprise, associated with Benjamin Spock, the anti-traditionalist, the secularist, the authoritative, anti-authoritarian, there we go with the dualistic nature again, would have been the very, well, opposite of what the Roman Catholic Church stood for. Of course, McCoy was the real thing. You know, the real McCoy. Coke is the real thing. Well, that was Coca-Cola's campaign at the time that Star Trek came out. The Christian Church, in particular the Roman Catholic Church, has always been an opponent of rational, free thinking and a proponent of emotional belief and blind faith. That is what the Inquisition was all about, wasn't it? Spock, the free thinker, would have been burned at the stake by the Roman Catholic Inquisition. In Star Trek, the Roman Catholic Church has won because both Spock and McCoy were completely under the command of the Church. Kirk, Captain Kirk, representing a face of the Roman Catholic Church that they would like us to believe is what the Roman Catholic Church is really like. Because, you see, Captain James Kirk was kind, almost indulgent of the feud between his juniors, like a loving father, yet firm and forceful when necessary, yet never too forceful. There were no inquisitions on the Enterprise, except for that one episode where there were two other principals on the bridge of the Enterprise, Uhura and Scott. Uhura, a variant of Uhuru, Swahili for freedom, by the way, the African word for freedom. Uhura is the communications officer. So she could be freedom of speech. But she doesn't speak for herself. She is the go-to between the church and the universe outside. Kirk and the universe outside of the Enterprise, especially of the link with the Starfleet, which is God. So perhaps she represents religious freedom. Her freedom, though, is closer to slavery. Did I mention she was black? She cannot send or receive communications on her own, but only as directed by her superiors. Slavery. In Orwell's 1984, one of the Big Brother's 3 great truths was, freedom is slavery. Here we go with the dualistic nature again. Could this be saying slavery is freedom then? In Star Trek, with Uhura, the communications officer, the black. Or maybe calling her freedom was just a bit of black humor. What do you think? The freedom to be Catholic, to perceive and receive the universe with a Catholic mindset. That the universe outside of a person's own personal starship is whatever the Roman Catholic Church says it is. Now take it into another realm of today. Take out the Roman Catholic Church as being the mindset. How about the globalist mindset? The Illuminati's mindset? Make the world as one. Get rid of wars. Get rid of religion. And that particular religious freedom is the freedom to be Catholic, to perceive, receive the universe with a Catholic mindset. How about to be free in this total surveillance world, particularly of who you think God is the freedom to perceive and receive the universe in a global mindset, that the universe outside of a person's own personal starship is whatever the Roman Catholic Church says it is, or in this case, whatever the Illuminati says it is. Let me get into the other character, the engineer, the chief engineer on the Enterprise. That's next when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm Space. It's a View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to 2 locations. I communicate by email only. Spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. AI writes, it's amazing, isn't it, how easy it is to get people debating something as silly as the color of a dress. Unbelievable how easy it is to get something to go viral these days. Clearly also demonstrating how easy it is to control the masses through the internet. Whether the hook is real or imagined. Is this what our society has become? Debating a silly dress? Well, thanks for shedding light on what this dress operation may really have been about. Perception. Sadly, I lost my father recently to the dreaded disease cancer. He enjoyed listening to you, myself, and my dad used to enjoy discussing the things that we heard on your show, and I'm going to miss calling him to discuss the information from the show, but I was still going to be listening, and perhaps he's been spared, seeing some of what I believe may be unleashed on this world very soon as we inch closer to the full manifestation of the New World Order. I brought the dress up again in that email for a reason. The dress was first posted on Tumblr by a Scot, a 21-year-old woman from Scotland. The chief engineer for the Enterprise in Star Trek was Mr. Scott. And the Industrial Revolution in Scotland is where it all began. Yes, Scotland was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Mr. Scott's name, the chief engineer on the Enterprise, is a perfect Victorian novel name that exactly describes his personality and his function. The simple mechanic, Mr. Scott, would then appear to embody all the elements of the Industrial Revolution that the Roman Catholic Church is willing to accept. Well, useful gadgets without any challenging ideas. Spock represents those elements that the Roman Catholic Church wishes to crush. And what about Chekhov and Sulu? Sulu appeared early, about the third episode. Chekhov, well, Chekhov was not added until the last episode of the first season. They were window dressing, Chekhov and Sulu. Chekhov was added in response to a viewer complaining that for a ship claiming to represent all of the Earth, the bridge had too many Americans. They simply represented their nationalities and, by extension, the second and third worlds. Notice, though, that both were completely under the control of Captain James T. Kirk, the Roman Catholic Church. In the original broadcast, it became the New World Order in the final, say, after Roddenberry died. This suggests that the whole world is run by the Roman Catholic Church, or at least that they intend it to be in the future, wherein Star Trek is set. The show's starship, the USS Enterprise itself, was the first shuttle in the NASA up and back space shuttle fleet that never did fly. As a matter of fact, the Enterprise, the original Enterprise for NASA, didn't even have an engine. But the starship, the USS Enterprise, with a designated number, NCC 1701, numerology, I break it down for you, it's a 2. 2 meaning total separation from the true God. And that's exactly what the USS Enterprise was. Yes, had a conspiratorial name as well. Enterprise. We all know that the military operations around the world, like Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Restoration Hope, the Manhattan Project, all these code names given to military operations, this practice is not entirely new. Matter of fact, it goes way back in history, because there's nothing new under the sun. It's simply history repeating itself. The Spanish Armada was codenamed the Enterprise. Yes. You know anything about the Spanish Armada? Well, what was the failed attempt to invade England by Spain is called the Enterprise, where Spain, Roman Catholic, wanted to invade England, pagan, and change it all. England was then ruled by Queen Elizabeth I. She had John Dee in her court, the original 007 James Bond, licensed to kill man, and Francis Bacon, who wrote The New Atlantis, also in Queen Elizabeth I's court. They were heavily into black magic, During her reign, she encouraged a cult of personalities to grow up around her, and I've just named a few. She and her inner circle got into some pretty strange things, like goddess worship, of course, demon conjuring, and all manner of un-Catholic activities. As an example of this, Sir Walter Raleigh's court clothing was all black with magical symbols woven in silver and thread. The enterprise was an attempt to dethrone the pagan Queen Elizabeth I and retake England for Catholicism. The USS portion of the ship's name was defined on Star Trek as meaning United Starship, not the United States ship. United Starship. A transparent play on the United States ship, though. That designates all USS, or United States Navy aircraft. As for the designator number, today all aircraft are required to display N numbers, as in Nora, as a form of ID. This number 1701 could refer to the year 1701, which was the date of the beginning of the War of the Spanish Succession. It was awarded to determine who would ascend to the Spanish throne. It eventually embroiled all of Europe, becoming a precursor to the world wars to follow centuries later. I believe that in this context, that date symbolized, with the airing of Star Trek, a new war of Neo-Spanish, for example, Catholic succession to the throne of Earth had begun. Because I believe that the Roman Catholic Church has been taken over by the Illuminati now, and are on the same side. A deal has been struck. That's why the switch in popes. What about the latter generations of Star Trek, the 7 movies and the 2 TV shows that followed? Did they follow in this conspiracy? I don't think they did. You can find some pretty interesting meanings in some of the names and can arrive at some intriguing interpretations of some of the stories aired, but I don't see this system of hidden messages about the Roman Catholic Church continuing through. But there is a possibility that with the death of Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, and the changing of personnel over the years, one or more other voices began to speak through this format. The globalists, the Illuminati, got a hold of it and changed it to their way. One episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, involved the Federation in violation of its vaunted Prime Directive, sending undercover agents to a planet to shift them from a multinational political system to a one-world government system. You see? PSYOPs, undercover agents, sent to planets to shift that planet from a multinational political system to a one-world government. Bring them in the fold. Create the chaos in the rogue nation that won't join and make them join. Give them a reason they need to join. Protection. The object was to get them to have a single voice so that the planet could then be asked to join the Federation, you see. This was the start, really, of the softening up of the public. It was a message from the Illuminati, which the Roman Catholics seem to have joined now. And there's a growing movement to consolidate all of the nations on Earth into a single authority. The United Nations morphed into a new world order. All nations belonging with one leader, one realm, one king. Television programming continues to be population programming, in this case a plot to move the Earth's population towards an accepted real federation of Earth at some point in the near future. That's what Star Trek's foundation was for, in your mind. To build this united federation of Earth at some point in the near future. It's already planted in your mind. It's pre-programming. Predictive programming, it's called. In the psychoanalytic world, in the psychological world. Here's the real reason for all the space-based shows. All interpolation. A number of people in the UFO community, for instance, have been suggesting for a long time now that shows like the various generations of Star Trek, My Favorite Martian, The X-Files, Third Rock from the Sun, Star Wars, Alien Nation, and you could go on and on and on, as well as all the movies, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, being used to precondition the public into accepting the arrival of extraterrestrials who are, we're now told, with the likes of, well, say, former defense minister for the Canadian government, Paul Hellyer, says they're already here in hiding. And they're your neighbors. So is Star Trek, originally an attempt to subliminally convert North America. Now, did it become a vehicle for creating acceptance for the creation of a united federation of Earth? Was it actually a psychological war operation perpetrated by the Illuminati to convert or subvert the world? The answer is an emphatic yes. Space back with more on the other side of the break. It's Talk Radio, AM 640, it's AVFS. Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640 AVFS. You can email me, spaceman at 640toronto.com, one address, spaceman at 640toronto.com, the other address. And I thank you for the one that you have sent. I really appreciate them, I really do. G.O. writes, Space, McCoy's nurse, her last name? Chappell. Nurse Christine Chappell. Thanks for your hard work. Here's another one. J.P. writes, some more symbolism behind chapel. According to the Roman Catholic Church, you get your healing in the chapel. Also, Kirk's middle initial, T. Literally a crucifix cross, especially obviously shown in a lower case. The more I think about your topic in the light you are presenting it, the more little details I see that back it up. Thanks for the interesting topic. Well, that's what this show does. What's the word I'm looking for? It inspires you to think for yourself. Okay? Now, why would all of this alien stuff be sold to us the way it has? Because that's what has been happening. As I said to you, 1947 was when they started to say, and that was the first real sighting. Notice I used the word real there. But it wasn't real. But it was the first sighting of a UFO, 1947. After that, people were still very, very skeptical. And through the 50s, if you ever thought aliens existed, you were some guy with a tinfoil hat on. Like, you were weird. Now, I suggest to you, after all of the propaganda and all of the knowledge, the enlightenment that the Illuminati have provided for everyone about aliens and outer space and all of the black magic spells that have gone with it, that you now believe aliens have to exist now. And you're crazy if you don't think that they exist. In other words, it's exactly the opposite. It's the duality again. So why would they want to sell you on this outer space thing? Because they're telling you that if only if we could get into outer space, we could find out the truth about how life began. I mean, you got to go billions and trillions and quadrillions of miles to find out how life began. Why? Because the Illuminati believes in cosmic ancestry. What is cosmic ancestry? ancestry? Well, it's a new theory pertaining to, well, it's a black magic spell, pertaining to evolution and the origin of life on Earth. It holds that life on Earth was seeded from space, and that life's evolution to higher forms depends on genetic programs that come from space. And of course, it has to accept the Darwinian account of evolution that does not require new genetic programs. It's a wholly scientific, testable, black magic science for which evidence is supposedly accumulating. The first point, which deals with the origin of life on Earth, is known as Panspermia. Literally, seeds everywhere. That's what the word means. Seeds everywhere. Its earliest recorded advocate was the Greek philosopher Anaxagoras. Anaxagoras, who influenced Socrates. The origin of the word panspermia, the scientific usage of that word, can be traced back to the Ionian Greek philosopher I've just mentioned. Around 450 BC, Anaxagoras of Clazomenae come up with that at that point in time, 450 BC. The word is first noted in English in 1690, according to the Oxford Dictionary, in the form of panspermatic, appearing in William Laybourne's Cursus Mathematicus. But Aristotle's theory of spontaneous generation came to be preferred by science for more than a couple of thousand years. Then, all of a sudden, one day, the year 1864. The date? A 9-day. April 9. French chemist Louis Pasteur announces his great experiment disproving spontaneous generation as it was then held to occur. In the 1870s, British physicist Lord Kelvin and German physicist Hermann von Helmholtz reinforced Louis Pasteur and argued that life could come from space. In the first decade of the 1900s, Swedish chemist, Nobel laureate Svante Arrhenius theorized that bacterial spores propelled through space by light pressure were the seeds of life on Earth. But in the 1920s, Russian biochemist Alexander Oparin and English geneticist Jimmy Haldane, writing independently, revived the doctrine of spontaneous generation in a more sophisticated form. In the new version, spontaneous generation of life no longer happens on Earth. It takes too long to observe in a laboratory and has left no clues about its occurrence. Supporting this theory, in 1953, American chemists Stan Miller and Harold Urey showed that some amino acids can be chemically produced from ammonia and methane gases. That experiment is now famous, and the Oparin-Haldane paradigm still dominates today. Starting in the 70s, British astronomers Fred Hoyle, Chandra Wickramasinghe rekindled interest in panspermia. By careful spectroscopic observations, which is examination of colors in electromagnetic spectrums, and analysis of light from distant stars, they found new evidence, traces of life, in the intervening dust. They also proposed that comets, which are basically made of water, ice, carry bacterial life across galaxies and protect it from radiation damage along the way. It is now universally accepted that space contains the ingredients of life. This development is the first hint of the huge shift of belief that is about to hit Earth. Yes, new revolutionary information that will destroy the belief system given by the monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. In other words, disproving the Bible's version of the creation of life. Through science, black magic, it will be done. But mainstream science has not yet accepted the hard core of modern panspermia, that whole cells seeded life on Earth. What they do, and they will do, and very soon, it'll be controlled by the Illuminati. And the change in thinking will come. How will it be done? Is it the white and gold color on the dress, or is it the black and blue color on the dress? Did life, are you going to believe our take on life now, this new and improved information that we have, this enlightenment that we have from our discoveries on faraway planets, that life is created in outer space? And they will say to you, well, you don't really understand everything that we understand about it, so just let's take our word for it. Science knows best. Amino acids in meteorites create the starting ingredients for life on Earth. Yeah, that's why we're so, well, anal about meteorites and comets, because that's where they want to find the secret out. The amino acids in meteorites are the starting ingredients for life on Earth. At a conference in Seattle not long ago, geologist Mike Engel, chemist Stephen Mako, confirmed that 8 of life's standard 20 amino acids have been found in carbonaceous meteorites like Murchison. The non-presence of the other 12 is a puzzle, and it is evidence that the 8 are not earthly contaminants. Why amino acids from space are predominantly left-handed? If they were produced non-biologically is another puzzle, for which we have another suggestion. Anyway, as one science put it, pseudo-panspermia is now well accepted, and no one is complaining. My question is, whatever happened to conclusively proving before accepting the premise? Isn't that the scientific way? This is what I mean. The new science I speak about today is what's called science/black magic. Because it's not conclusively proving anything before they accept the premise. Well, scientists have accepted the belief that life on Earth began as primordial soup in a lake or a pond some 4 billion years ago, according to this theory. Chemicals from the atmosphere combined with some form of energy necessary to make amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, to create the first primitive organisms, kicking off the evolution of Earth's species. But the primordial soup theory is being increasingly disputed. A lot of geophysicists now have turned and said that the Earth did not have enough gases like ammonia and methane from which organic material like amino acids could be produced. Instead, a growing group of scientists, once again controlled by the Illuminati, now believe and these are the ones that will get the airtime, now believe the organic material needed to create life may not have been produced on Earth, but was instead brought here by comets. The newly formed Earth was likely subjected to a fierce bombardment of comets 4 billion years ago. These comets, they now say, may have brought with them the organic compounds that later evolved into living matter. Oh, it's all coming. It's going to be proven. And religion? Ooh, backseat time to this science black magic new phenomenon. And you'll have to decide, what color is the dress? Blue or black or white and gold? More next. Talk Radio AM 640, I'm Space. I'm the guy they call the Spaceman. It's a view from space. Emails only. I communicate by email only. Spaceman, 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Thanks for the one you sent. L.E. writes, Hi, Spaceman. I wonder if you know about the but comedy show Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory has on past weeks talked about CERN, DNA, and even zombies on last night's new episode. A pretty far stretch from their usual comedy. Now, it's all programming. I see. Yeah, the Big Bang Theory. It's basically just propagandizing people. In the show's title, doesn't have anything to do with the creation of life. But the title is about the creation of life, because that's one of the theories, the Big Bang Theory. Everything exploded and life came out of it. Out of destruction came creation. Interesting, isn't it? How that works like that. On this level of science / black magic today, here on this third dimension that we're living in. And there's an addendum to Ellie's email saying, forgot to say that Star Trek also constantly being referenced to in the Big Bang Theory. So Star Trek's always being mentioned in this half-hour sitcom. It's not funny at all anymore because this predictive programming is intense and it feels like our reality is already half flipped over on us. Crazy. Yes, everything that can be shaken will be shaken and changed and proven to be false. Because even now, things like this week have pointed out, colors can change. It's all about perception. Nothing is real. Nothing is right or wrong. Only thinking makes it that way. Either right or wrong. So get on board with the New World Order and the new way of thinking. The premortal soup is out as creation of life. Amino acids from comets is in. Organic material needed to create life was not produced on Earth. That's what the scientists / black magicians are now starting to say. According to the most radical theory the Illuminati has come up with yet, known as Panspermia, life in a ready-made form is everywhere at the same time in the galaxy and is brought by comets to new planets. So far, only a few scientists subscribe to this view, because that all is a theory. But I can assure you, it will become more and more accepted as time goes on. A lot more scientists are now leaning toward a combination of the comet impact theory and the primordial soup storyline. They believe some chemical building blocks may have come from comets, but the assembly of life took place on Earth. The main question they're struggling with is whether organic molecules can survive space travel, or if they can break up and contribute the atoms that are necessary to ultimately make biological material and water. Guess what? They're going to prove through their scientific experiments, their trips to all of these faked trips to all of these distant planets, that they now have the information. And they'll call it science. And it won't be. Because science is conclusively proving before accepting a premise. They're accepting the premise and then going out to prove it. And they will give you the information needed to prove it. Our museums contain examples of primitive meteorites that are likely very similar to the material delivered by the comets that they're speaking about. The key point is that small bodies delivered their organics intact to Earth's surface. That's what's got to be believed by you. So you don't understand, so you just believe the expert, the black magician / scientist. This must have been a common event on the early Earth. The comet impact theory fits in with the primordial soup theory. They can be complementary, and you can bet the Illuminati are going to show that it comes together some way. But Panspermia comes from outer space. Life, in other words, is the psyops here. Life comes, the psychological operation to make you think that life comes from outer space. Aliens created man. Okay? That's where they're headed. So to convince you, they tell you scientists are now drilling into comets and measuring the molecular makeup of comets to better understand what chemical reactions form them. And this will, of course, provide the clues to the evolution of carbon-based chemistry on Earth in its early history. The new research that they are going to come up with is going to combine laboratory experiments, observations with telescopes, and spacecraft missions, and missions to sample comet and asteroid material. A European mission, not associated with NASA, even landed on a comet and drilled into the comet. Remember, I had it on the show, the Rosetta mission with its lander Philae. And I went so deep into that, unbelievable, how that was connected with ISIS in ancient Egypt. Because remember, the Rosetta mission, the Rosetta Stone is where it got its name from. The Rosetta is actually the blueprint to understand the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it's a little piece of the puzzle. Rosetta. So that's why the Rosetta mission, as it was called, landed on the planet. Rosetta. Get it? The interpreter. An important part of the project focused on water on that planet, or on that comet rather, which is seen as an essential ingredient of life. That's why it's such a big deal. Well, why these experiments involving comets in outer space are being performed? Why? To convince you that life is made in outer space. Accept it, even if you don't understand it. These discoveries are going to bring up some very interesting possibilities for the Illuminati to use to fool you. Imagine the possibility that life of some kind existed on Mars. If rocks can be blasted off a planet without being superheated at some point. It is possible that bacteria or other simple life forms trapped in these rocks could, well, survive a wild ride to another world. Well, that's known as panspermia. By the early 1970s, the idea of panspermia was already well accepted. How? A Nobel laureate, Francis Crick, proposed with Leslie Orgel that terrestrial life may have originated from direct panspermia, meaning, and I didn't say extraterrestrial life, I said terrestrial life. Terrestrial life may have originated from directed panspermia, meaning intelligent extraterrestrials, aliens, themselves, delivering primitive organisms as proxy colonists. Putting it more simply, E.T. brought down their seed and placed it here, among us, with our women. And their bloodline is now hidden in the Illuminati's elite families. Science, a theory, is valid for just one place and one time, and the fact that right now life does not generate through abiotic processes does not mean that life could not generate spontaneously at every time or every place. Do not allow Lovelock, Hoyle, Wickramasinghe, any of those black magic / scientists deceive you, and do not deceive yourself. Together with the panspermists' reports, the lies of the cosmic ancestry hypothesis, they are trying to associate it with faith and philosophy and religion. For them, a mysterious power exists that is dedicated to disseminating life through the universe. The Illuminati believe it's aliens. See how they have hidden all of this agenda? But now I'm unveiling it. Their real intention to you tonight. Without supernatural intervention, the earliest living forms were generated spontaneously on Earth through abiotic processes. All evidences accumulated on the panspermist version of how life began actually are not evidence of how life began at all, but just speculation on how life could possibly reach the Earth if life came from other cosmic places. How unscientific is that? Is that proving the premise? No. To come to the point, panspermia hypothesis moves away from the fundamental meaning of science to stand for truth and to give valid explanations for all natural events with long-term data and experimentation, which takes too long for the Illuminati today. They're in too much of a hurry. It's not enough to say that we are made of stardust or we are extraterrestrial beings. We are children of the universe. We are not alone. Last scientific discoveries persuade us to think that until now, and while we do not find a sign of life from Earth, outside of Earth, we are alone in the universe. What panspermists say is that their great support of the extraterrestrial origin of living beings is coming into the forefront. Enter the UFO phenomenon, pushed heavily by today's Illuminati-controlled mass media. Space, back with more next. If you're a first-time listener to the radio show, I communicate by email only. I have two locations, two addresses, spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. I have no website, none whatsoever, no Twitter account, no Facebook page. I don't even have a cell phone. of a very small, tiny cyber footprint. One of my emailers, let me call him J6, writes, "Perhaps you've heard that Battlestar Galactica seems to support the Mormon idea," and comments on tonight's show. And I find it very, very interesting that asked me if I've heard about the Battlestar Galactica show actually supporting the Mormon idea of that religion. And I've done shows on it, as a matter of fact, J6. And probably will talk about it sometime in the future, too. And I find it very ironic that my emailer, J6, sends his message to me on his Android device. Interesting, isn't it, how it all just kind of sneaks in there, right? Nothing to do with the email, but it was sent from an Android device. You know what an Android is, right? It's a robot, a synthetic organism designed to look and act just like an actual human, especially one with a body having a flesh-like resemblance. And that's what I mean by the science/black magic that we're going to very soon be seeing. We're going to be showing these. They're going to show you aliens. They're going to be their own concoction, but they're going to call them aliens. Android. Yeah. It's not only a robot that looks like a human. Android is an operating system and a phone. How's that for propagandizing the world on aliens from outer space? Oh, the push is on. Big time. The sell is on. As a matter of fact, it wasn't long ago, 1972 is the year, that actual scale, an actual measurement was established for alien encounters. No one has ever had one, but there's always the same story. Lights appear and then whisked away really quickly. That's it. Sometimes there's a bee buzzing sound, but there are always lights, sometimes, usually 3. But no one ever seems to get a clear picture of them. Since 1947, they've been trying to take or photoshopping pictures to make them look like UFOs. Because there aren't any. And we're not being visited by any. But to convince you there are, again, is the dress white and gold or is the dress blue or black? Which is true? Perception. How do you perceive it? How well has the brainwashing worked for you? 1972, I said, a scale of measurement has been established for something that has never happened. An alien encounter. When a UFO is sighted, it's called an encounter of the first sign. When contact is made with extraterrestrials, it's the third kind. And when evidence is collected, it's the second kind. Abduction is the fourth kind. The encounter has been the most difficult to document, obviously, because no one has been abducted and can actually prove that they were. Many have said they have been. Now, according to Hynek's classification, these ones that I just talked to you about, the close encounter of the first kind is the near sighting. 500 feet or less away you have to be of an unidentified flying object. Aerial object, maneuvering or otherwise displaying characteristics that are not possible with terrestrial technology. A close encounter of the second kind is the sighting of a UFO that leaves some physical trace evidence of its presence. These take the form of either measurable heat or radiation damage, crop circles, or the observer or damage to the immediate terrain, crop circles, and its flora and fauna, crop circles. Incidences of human paralysis or inexplicable frightened or agitated animals, as well as interference of radio and television reception, fall into this category of perceived evidence of a physical trace. A close encounter of the second kind of a UFO. And I guess you could say the phenomena of lost time associated with UFO sighting is also a second kind encounter. I don't know how long it was. It felt like days, but it was only 2 minutes. Or it felt like 2 minutes, but I was out there for 18 hours. Those kinds of things. The phenomena of lost time associated with coming in contact with a god. Due to Steve Spielberg's famous flick, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they're the most well-known. This encounter scenario is where the witness observes animate beings in association with the sighted UFO. Not only the vehicle, but the actual beings themselves are sighted. Hynek himself, who made up this little scale, didn't wish to use the word alien, as there was no rule, and you couldn't rule out the possibility that beings seen were actually human or not, as opposed to automatically assuming that they were extraterrestrial origin. So he didn't want to use the word alien at all. Others have attracted extra classifications to this list, although not all ufologists universally accept these. Ted Blocher added 7 more potential categories to this Hynek 5. Ted Blocher's 7 more are mostly subsets of the major classifications, and 3 don't even particularly pertain to UFOs or aliens at all. Of the most accepted of these additional classifications is added the Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. In the fourth close encounter category is the actual abduction of the human by alien beings. The Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind classification was proposed by Steve Greer, founder of the Center of the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. These encounters are ones mutually arrived at with a conscious and deliberate purpose by both the human and the alien for the purpose of communication. E.T., let's talk. These contactee encounters were considered to have begun sometime in around the 50s, right after the year of 1947, when the first sighting was made public. So, these contactee encounters started around the 50s, just about 3-4 years after the first one was sighted, or supposedly sighted, and the world was told. More on imminent disclosure of aliens in our presence follows this break on Talk Radio AM 640. This is AVFS. I'm Space. This is View from Space, Talk Radio AM 640. Got a piece of information you'd like to send along to me? Got a critique of the show? Just want to say where in the world you're listening to AVFS from on Talk Radio AM 640? Just send it to me in an email, spaceman@640toronto.com or space@640 Toronto.com. Now, this date, September 13th, 2010, quite a significant date. That was the date of a newly published 352-page book by a retired Air Force officer by the name of Stanley Fulham. And he predicted a massive UFO display over the world's principal cities. According to the author, the aliens will neither land nor communicate on that encounter, and they are aware from eons of experience with other planets in similar conditions their sudden intervention would cause fear and panic. So I guess these aliens have been flying around to other inhabited planets in some other solar system, as well as visiting us soon, according to this retired Air Force officer, Stanley Fulham. The book Challenges of Change, as it's called, 3rd edition, reports this event will be the initial interaction in a process leading to mankind's acceptance of the alien reality and technologies for the removal of poisonous gases from the Earth's atmosphere in, well, the near future. Stanley Fulham, retired Air Force officer, draws on his military experience with the UFO phenomenon dating back to World War II, and later with NORAD with his later lifelong association, and with a senior NORAD intelligence officer who provided him a wealth of supposed historical data relating to NORAD's experiences with the UFO alien reality, which has never really been revealed to the public, because there isn't any information. In the military's view, as conveyed to and understood by Stanley Fulham, the author of this book, published in 2010, about a massive UFO display over the world's great cities. He writes that generally is recognized UFOs function beyond our Earth's physical laws, and has concluded answers to questions regarding who they are, where they're from, why they're here, are they a threat, and a mystery of abductions can only be found at a higher dimension of reality. For more than a decade, through the services of a world-famous channeler, Stanley Fulham has communicated with an ethereal group of entities known as the Transcenders. He's into demonic worship here. The entities, this ethereal group of entities he speaks about, are demons, liars. He calls them the Transcenders. 43,000, he says, very old souls. And of course they would have to give the number of 7, because 7 is the number of spirituality. And that's why there's 43,000 very old souls who combine their vast experience and knowledge through eons of incarnations, providing advice and information to humans that are in search of basic realities of mankind's existence. Yes, 43,000 of them, of these demons. 4 and 3, of course, 7. The number of spirituality would have to be. Numerology is one of the guiding principles of the Illuminati. The book, called Challenges of Change, reports on the author's years of communication with the Transcenders, these spirit demons, in a question and answer format intended to inform and challenge, of course. The Transcenders, as they're known to him, reveal through the author crucial information about urgent global challenges facing mankind, like earth changes, international terrorism, worldwide financial collapse, the environmental crisis. One revelation is that one of the Islamic extremist groups has a dirty nuclear bomb and weapons of mass destruction, but faces a moral quandary over containment of collateral damages. Bringing up the theme of the Four Horsemen as the apocalyptic symbolic metaphor, Stanley Fulham, the retired Army officer from the United States Army who wrote this book, says mankind will survive all of these future challenges except the CO2 pollution of our atmosphere, climate change. According to Fulham, the transcenders state that they have borne witness to countless thousands of alien civilizations who've polluted their planets to total extinction, where not a single being, not a single animal, not a single plant survived. And they urgently warn planet Earth that you're presently on the same self-destructive path. Yes, indeed, history repeating itself. All around all of the universes. Stanley Fulham, the author, reports that aliens are well aware of our environmental crisis and have benevolently decided to rescue mankind in this vast universal drama. I believe the Illuminati are going to launch 2 types of aliens. Yes, not just 1, 2. I believe there's going to be the evil bad guys and the good guys. Yeah. Evil and good. The duality in one. The aliens. So, according to Fulham, the transcenders, these demons that he talks to, state that they have borne witness to these countless thousands of alien civilizations who've gone into ruination and don't want Earth to. And Fulham has supposedly been in contact with a distinguished foreign ambassador who read the book with great interest and dispatched it to his home government, where it was translated and studied by hundreds of their top government officials. In other words, they're trying to tell you that the politicians are buying this. They're believing it. Fulham clarifies that there are no absolutes. The principle of free will and choice that exists with all souls precludes all absolute realities, and the aliens may decide to postpone their intervention. But the transcenders, these demonic spirits he talks to, confirms it will nonetheless occur soon. We are not alone, and our world will have changed forever. That's the message here. I don't know if you know this, but the extraterrestrial deception isn't a new one at all. It's really old. I mean, it was first foisted on generations that we can relate to in 1947, but supposedly the first ever reported sighting of a UFO was actually in the Middle East during the reign of Alexander the Great. I've had this on before, talking about the alien possibility. A historian of the reign of Alexander the Great actually tells of 2 strange craft that dived repeatedly at Alexander the Great's army until the war elephants, the man and all the horses panicked and refused to cross the river where the incident occurred. The historian described the object as great shining silver shields in the sky, spitting fire around the rims. Things that came from the skies and returned to the skies. This story has been related by a man known as Frank Edwards, as well by other writers, but so far I've seen no indication as to which classical author is actually responsible for it. Also, Raymond Drake mentions this subject in his book, Gods and Spacemen in Greece and Rome. Frank Howard's the famous American UFO reporter, quoting from some unknown source, as usual, states intelligent beings from outer space may already be looking us over. He goes as far as to claim Alexander the Great was not even the first to see them, nor was he the first to find them troublesome. He tells of a couple of strange craft that dived repeatedly at his army until the war elephants, the men, and the horses all panicked and refused to cross that river. What did things look like? His historian describes them as great, shining, silver shields, as I said, spitting fire around the rooms. Things that came from the sky and returned to the skies. This remarkable incident was apparently paralleled by an equally fantastic visitation during the siege of Tyre by Alexander the Great in 332 BC. Quoting Giovanni Alessandro il Grande, the Italian Alberto Finoglio wrote in Cyprus anno 111, a startling revelation which has been translated into English states, the fortress would not yield. Its walls were 50 feet high and constructed so solidly that no siege engine was able to damage it. The Tyrians disposed of the great technicians and builders of war machines of the time, and they intercepted in the air the incendiary arrows and projectiles hurled by the catapults on the city. One day, suddenly there appeared over the Macedonian camp these flying shields, as they had been called, which flew in triangular formation, led by an exceedingly large one. The others were smaller, by almost half. In all, there were 5. The unknown chronicler narrates they circled slowly over Tyre, while thousands of warriors on both sides stood and watched them in astonishment. Suddenly, from the largest shield came a lightning flash that struck the walls. These crumbled. Other flashes followed, and walls, towers dissolved, as if they had been built of mud, just like the Twin Towers in New York, leaving the way open for the besiegers who poured in like an avalanche through the breaches. The flying shields hovered over the city until it was completely stormed, when they were very swiftly disappearing, went aloft, soon melting into the blue sky. How about that? Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. Back with more on the other side of the break. I'm the Spaceman. This is View from Space. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to spaceman@640toronto.com and space@640toronto.com. And thank you, that security guard in Bolton, Ontario, Canada, picking up a brand new listener tonight. Discovered the show for the first time and going to be back next week. Thanks for the email. Here's another sighting. Long time ago, going back to, well, before Christ, for alien encounters. Yeah! Alexander the Great had his years before Christ walked on the earth. Christopher Columbus, Pedro Gutierrez, while on the deck of the Santa Maria, observed a light glimmering at a great distance, it said. Yeah, I'm talking about Christopher Columbus sailing the ocean and discovering America. And encounters a UFO. A light glimmering at a great distance, seen at night on the deck of the Santa Maria by Christopher Columbus and Pedro Gutierrez. It vanishes, reappears several times during the night, moving up and down in sudden and passing gleams. It was sighted 4 hours before land was sighted and taken by Columbus. Christopher Columbus took it as a sign that they would soon come to land. Even Christopher Columbus, it appears, saw a UFO while patrolling the deck of the Santa Maria at about 10 o'clock at night, October 11th, 1492. Columbus first thought he saw a light glimmering at a great distance. Then he hurriedly summons Pedro Gutierrez, a gentleman of the king's bedchamber, who also saw the light, and after a short time it vanishes, only to reappear several times during the evening, each time dancing up and down in sudden and passing gleams. The light, first seen 4 hours before the land was sighted, was never explained. Edmund Halley, discoverer of Halley's Comet, sees a UFO in March of 1676 in the UK. Oh yeah, I kid you not. They've got some pretty impressive talking head experts, historians, men of renown, telling you about these things. Propagandizing it is what they're doing. Edmund Halley, the astronomer who discovered Halley's Comet, could recall a couple of accounts involving unidentified crafts. His first experience was in March of 1676 when he saw, as he said, a vast body, apparently bigger than the moon. He estimated it at about 40 miles above him. He also stated that it made a noise, like the rattling of a great cart over stones. After estimating the distance it traveled in a matter of minutes, he came to the conclusion that it moved at a speed of greater than 9,600 miles an hour. This is all calculated by Edmund Halley, the discoverer of Halley's Comet. Clyde Tombaugh was the American astronomer who discovered the planet Pluto. August 20th, 1949, he observed a UFO that appeared as a geometrically arranged group of 6 to 8 rectangles of light, window-like in appearance, and yellowish-green in color, which moved from northwest to southeast over Las Cruces, New Mexico. Tombaugh was probably the person recognized by the academic world as having paramount rank, dignity, importance, being the most outstanding supreme astronomer to have reported ever seeing identified flying objects. August 20th, 1949. Clyde Tombaugh claims he sees several UFOs near Las Cruces, New Mexico. He describes them as 6 to 8 rectangular lights. I doubt that the phenomenon was any terrestrial reflection, he says, because nothing of the kind has ever appeared before or since. He goes on to say, I was so unprepared for such a strange sight that I was really petrified with astonishment. Tombaugh was also later to have reported seeing 3 of the mysterious green fireballs which suddenly appeared over New Mexico in late 1948, and continued at least through the early 50s. This was when they were establishing the UFO phenomena, believe me. 1947 was the first sight. And 48, fireballs, green ones, seen by the American astronomer, who is recognized as having paramount rank, the utmost in dignity, super important, and being the most outstanding supreme astronomer to ever have reported seeing an unidentified flying object. I have seen 3 objects, he says, in the last 7 years, which defied any explanation of known phenomena, such as Venus, a planet, possibly, atmospheric optic, meteors, or planes even. He says, I am a professional, a highly skilled professional astronomer. In addition, I have seen 3 green fireballs, which were unusual in behavior from normal green fireballs. I think that several reputable scientists are being unscientific in refusing to entertain the possibility of extraterrestrial origin in nature. You see, so the push was on. That was back in 1949. That same year, Clyde Tombaugh also told the Naval Missile Director at White Sands Missile Range, Commander Robert McLaughlin, that he had seen a bright flash on Mars in 1941, which he now attributes to an atomic blast. Tombaugh also noted that the first atomic bomb tested in New Mexico would have lit up the dark side of the Earth like a neon sign, and that Mars was coincidentally quite close at the time. And the application apparently being that the atomic test would have been visible from Mars. Any Martian may have seen it. In 1952, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the one who gave us the first 5 close encounters, an astronomer acting as a scientific consultant then to the Air Force's Project Blue Book UFO study, secretly conducts a survey of fellow astronomers on UFO sightings and the attitudes of them while attending an astronomy convention. Tombaugh and 4 other astronomers told Hynek about their sightings, including Dr. Lincoln La Paz at the University of New Mexico. Tombaugh also told Hynek that his telescopes were at the Air Force's disposal for taking photos of UFOs, if he was properly alerted. They call this man America's most trusted man. Know what I'm talking about? He's on the list of famous and highly respected persons who claims to have seen a UFO. Yeah, America's most trusted man. None other than CBS Evening News anchor Walter Cronkite, making history with the events covered in the 20th century for CBS. From the JFK assassination, he was the one who announced his death, and the first steps of the fake moon landing. It was Walter Cronkite, yes, also claims to have seen a UFO. As the CBS Evening News anchor for many years, Cronkite became a part of many American families as he brought the news propaganda to them. Walter Cronkite became a trusted friend of almost everyone who viewed his work. Now you see the likes of Brian Williams taken down, newscasters losing credibility. Walter Cronkite was given the powers to electronically enter millions of American homes almost every night of the week for years. CBS was making a special documentary about UFO phenomenon in 1973, and by the early 70s, the UFO topic had reached a high point in popularity that had been building over 25 years by then. Bookstores filled with UFO books and mags. CBS decided that the subject deserved serious consideration and planned to look at it from the standpoint of witnesses with little or no editorial comment. We're told that for CBS to prepare a special program about UFOs during those times was not a decision that was made lightly. The network was at the height of its audience influence. Everything they did was watched literally by the entire world. After months of planning, Walter Cronkite approached with the idea. Though the program was to be hosted by several CBS News reporters, Cronkite would do the interviews. The story goes that Walter Cronkite, America's most trusted man, recruited for this job to sell America, the world's most trusted man, to sell them on UFOs, read a small piece that was written for a now defunct UFO publication about the United States Air Force and the cover-up of UFO information. which interested him, and so he put the man's name on a list of people he wanted to interview for the CBS special he was going to do, that he was handpicked for. Somebody with great credibility, of course, right? The man's name? Bill Nell. By 1973, Bill Nell was being groomed as a UFO researcher. He'd already been investigating UFOs for years, was doing a whole bunch of seminars on the subject, hadn't written many books, but he was out there drumming it up for the Illuminati, but had already written articles that were used by many of the Illuminati-controlled newspapers and magazines around the world, and was just beginning to become involved with the media, this Mr. Bill Nell. Cronkite was very interested in some of the Air Force stories he'd collected. He was especially interested in the fact that Bill Nell grew up in an Air Force family. You see, this group, the ones that are connected to or involved in the Air Force, are often used to spread the alien hoax because they're perceived by the public to be experts on flying objects. So, Bill Nell tells the story this way. It was after about 30 minutes of talking. Cronkite says to him, "Let me tell you my UFO story." For the next 5 minutes, Bill Nell sits there, stunned, in silence, as the most trusted man in America, Walter Cronkite, tells him what he had seen. In the 1950s, Cronkite was part of a good pool of news reporters brought out to a small South Pacific island to watch the test of a new Air Force missile. After a short inspection by the news system by the reporters, they were led to an area that was a safe distance from the launch site. The missile was mounted on a specially built launcher that was to attach to a cement base, and it was obvious that the area had been quickly built for just this test, and this test alone. The details about the missile were going to be given to the reporters in the form of handout sheets and press releases after the test. That story I want to return on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm Space. This is ABFS. Spaceman, Talk Radio AM 640 and a view from space. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. For reasons, my emailer to keep his identity a secret, I'll call him Anonymous. Anonymous writes, "It's no coincidence that 1947, the year of creation for a certain alphabet agency, is when the so-called UFO landings commenced on our shores. I knew one of these infamous masters of PSYOPs. Last 20 years of life, he told me in confidence that in planning certain black ops, dating back all the way to the 50s, they would often plant a number of distracting news stories in the media. And one of their favorite tricks was using UFO sightings or landings to misdirect the public from the actual clandestine operation that was actually going on, the black ops. And just like kittens with a ball of yarn, my emailer states, the public would inevitably be more fascinated and distracted by the reported UFO sighting in their city than the far more treacherous operation they would simultaneously be conducting. And it was all planned, sometimes weeks or months in advance, and perfectly timed to appear in the friendly media outlets the same or next day after their operation." And Anonymous ends the email with, "Reminds me of the dress misdirection this week." Another PSYOPs. Yes. Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America, in the 1950s, was on television and recounted his sighting of a UFO. The most trusted man in America saw an unidentified flying object. So as I said before the break, South Pacific Island, some crack news reporters, just a small pool of them, brought out to a small Pacific Island, South Pacific Island, by the United States Air Force for a new missile test. Show them how it worked. Just then, as they're about to be shown, just as the test was ready to proceed, everyone's writing as fast as they could to get all of the information down as to their position, what they were about to see, what the area was like, what their experience was about. As Air Force security personnel walked around the perimeter of the test area with guard dogs and the carefully selected news reporters watching, the missile is then fired up and was about to be released. Just then, Walter Cronkite says, a large disc-type UFO appeared on the scene. Walter Cronkite guessed that the object was about 50 to 60 feet in diameter, dull gray in color, had no visible means of propulsion, and because the noise of activity around him in the engine of the missile they were about to witness launching was so loud, he couldn't tell whether the disc made any noise or not. He says he didn't notice any noise coming directly from the object. As Air Force guards ran toward the UFO with their dogs, what they're going to do, I don't know, the disc hovers about 30 feet off the ground. It suddenly, this is Walter Cronkite telling this story on CBS in the 1950s. It suddenly sent out a blue beam of light, which struck the missile, a guard, and a dog, all at the same time. The missile's frozen in midair about 70 feet from the launcher as it's taken off. The guard was frozen in mid-step and a dog frozen in midair as it jumped at the disc. Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America, said that this all happened within the space of about 5 minutes or less. Then, suddenly, the missile explodes. After that, disc vanishes. The guard and the dog looked all right, but were, well, quickly taken away by medical personnel always present at these tests, in case, of course, anyone becomes injured. At the same time, guards hurriedly ushered the reporters into a concrete observation area bunker. After about 30 minutes of sitting in the bunker, they were brought out again and addressed by an Air Force colonel. Walter Cronkite said the colonel told him this: "Boys, it was all part of the test." Cronkite says he felt that the U.S. Air Force colonel was obviously making it up as he went along. Cronkite says the colonel told the reporters that the event was staged to test media reactions to UFOs. He reinforced the usual line to the reporters that flying saucers were probably not extraterrestrial, but what people were actually seeing was secret planes being tested by the United States Air Force. This test was designed to show the media how shocking it could be to suddenly view a new technology. Well, Cronkite was certain that what he viewed was a new technology, but he also was sure it was not an earthly one. He didn't believe the Air Force explanation then, and right up until his death, he didn't believe it. After the event, reporters were told that since it was a test of media reaction to the new technology, they couldn't report on it. But they would be compensated later with exclusive stories on new U.S. Air Force projects, a promise that was never kept. Being as private as Walter Cronkite never did share with anybody else his own beliefs about UFOs beyond the story he told, that UFO research that I just reiterated to you. It was included in the CBS special for only a few minutes, by the way. When he asked Cronkite's staff members if they ever had or heard Walter Cronkite's UFO story, they had, but Cronkite had only shared it with a few key people, and it was not covered or even mentioned in the CBS special. By the way, CBS says that any tape or film of that CBS UFO special no longer exists. And the official reason was that it probably was lost in the shuffle of the news craziness surrounding Watergate, which broke big around that time. Pretty cool excuse to cover it up, right? United States Senator Richard Russell also saw a disc-shaped UFO in the USSR in 1955, he stated. This one in particular is interesting to me because of the date of the signing by the particular person who was placed in the highly respected sphere of influence. He was a United States Senator. The date? October, can you guess the number? Of course, 13th. The very same date, only exactly 55 years earlier, that the retired NORAD officer Stanley Fulham predicted in his new book about the fleet of extraterrestrial vehicles to hover over for hours over the Earth's major cities. One of the most powerful U.S. senators in modern history insists he was an actual eyewitness to not one, but 2 UFOs while on a fact-finding trip through Russia. Oh yes, they're bringing out the heavyweights, senators. And astronomers. It's just chock full. Senator Russell actually says he saw the first flying disc ascend and pass over a train that he was on. And supposedly CIA documents show that the agency later interviewed him, the 3 eyewitnesses in that Russell party, because there were 3 witnesses that say he did see it and they saw it with him, and also a 4th person, unidentified as in the reports, who had seen those UFOs. An eyewitness whose name was blacked out on the CIA report before its declassification said one of the UFOs had a slight dome on top and also a white light on top. The edge of the disk was glowing pinkish white. The UFO rose vertically with the glow moving slowly around the perimeter in a clockwise direction, giving the appearance of a pinwheel. Senator Russell, a United States Senator. Astronaut Gordon Cooper witnessed a UFO also landing at Edwards Air Force Base in California, of all places, in 1957. Gordon Cooper's story goes like this. One of an elite band of test pilots, by the way, at Edwards Air Force Base was Gordon Cooper, based in California, in charge of several advanced projects, including the installation of a precision landing system. This was before the faked moon landing. The astronaut Gordon Cooper witnesses a UFO. The National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics was a United States federal agency founded in 1915 to undertake, promote, and institutionalize aeronautical research. In 1958, the agency was dissolved. Assets and personnel transferred to newly created National Aeronautics and Space Administration, what we know now as NASA. You know the phrase, of course. NASA only looks for men with the right stuff. But you know what that really means. The guys who will lie for you and cover up for you. to perpetuate the myth of extraterrestrials. But it's all in perception, isn't it? With aliens, is the dress white and gold, or is it black and blue? This has been A View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. Coast to Coast is next. I'm Space, and I'm